Welcome to Dharmavaram Silk Sarees, waving heritage and elegance. Join us as we embark on journey to Dharmavaram, located at a distance of 47 kilometers from Anantapur district in Andhra Pradesh, India. Dharmavaram is well connected both by rail and road. Rooted in tradition, Dharmavaram silk sarees draw inspiration from rich cultural tapestry of Andhra Pradesh. The artistry and craftsmanship passed down through generations reflect the region's love for hand-woven textiles. Sericulture. It all starts with mulberry cultivation. Farmers grow mulberry trees as they are the primary food source for silkworms. Mulberry leaves provide the necessary nutrition for the silkworms to develop and spin their cocoons. Silkworm rearing. Farmers raise silkworms in controlled environment called silkwormeries or sericulture farms. Silkworms' eggs are hatched and the egg silkworms called larvae or caterpillars are then fed a diet consisting solely of mulberry leaves. The farmers ensure optimal conditions such as temperature, humidity and ventilation to promote healthy growth.
హాయ్ మా పేరు రాజు మాది అనంతపురం డిస్టిక్ ధర్మవరం మండలం మొడమల గ్రామము మేము ఇక్కడ 3 years నుంచి మల్బరీ సాగు చేస్తున్నాము ఇది మొక్కలు ఫస్ట్ చిన్నవి కటింగ్ చేసుకొని నెలలో చెక్కుతాము అవి మొలకెత్తిన తర్వాత ఒక 6 months కటింగ్ వస్తాయి 6 months కటింగ్ అయిన తర్వాత మళ్ళీ ప్రతి నెల 1.5 months కటింగ్ వస్తాయి అది ఆకు తీసుకొని పోయి పట్టుపురుగులు తెచ్చుకొని పెంచుకుంటాము అవి 22 రోజులకంతా అల్లే దశకు వస్తాయి అవి మళ్ళీ 7 days అట్లా పెట్టుకొని మళ్ళీ మార్కెట్ తీసుకెళ్ళి అమ్మేస్తాము ఇప్పుడు ఈ మార్చి ఏప్రిల్ మే ఈ 3 నెలలు ఎండ ఎక్కువ ఉంటుంది కాబట్టి ఈ పట్టలకి నీళ్లు ఇడుచుకుని డ్రిప్ ద్వారా ఈ సంచి పట్టలకి నీళ్లు ఇడుస్తాము ఇచ్చిన దానివల్ల ఈ కూలింగ్ అనేది లోపలికి వెళ్ళిపోతుంది.
This is how a silkworm egg looks like. Inside the silkworm egg, the embryo undergoes a period of development and growth. Over time, the embryo will transform into a larva commonly known as silkworm caterpillar, which will eventually spin a cocoon to protect itself during the next stage of the life cycle. Cocoon harvesting. When the silkworms complete their larval stage and reach the pupal stage, they spin cocoons made up of silk fibers. Once the silkworms have completed their larval stage and spun cocoons, the cocoons are harvested for silk production. Before the cocoons are boiled to extract the silk fibers, some methods involving a steaming process. The steaming process facilitating silk fibers extraction. Steaming the cocoons before boiling helps loosen the sarsen, a protein that binds the silk fibers together. This makes it easier to unravel the silk filaments from the cocoon during the subsequent stages of production, preventing cocoon damage. Steaming the cocoons helps to kill the silkworm pupa inside the cocoon before boiling. This prevents the pupa from maturing into adult moths and breaking the silk filament as they emerge from the cocoon. Boiling the cocoons. The selected cocoons are then placed in boiling water. That heat helps to dissolve the sarsen, a natural gum-like substance that holds the silk fibers together. This machine generates steam which is used to boil the water with the help of dry wood. This process softens the sarsen and facilitates the separation of the silk fibers. After the boiling process has finished, the cocoons can be moved to the subsequent stage of reeling. Typically, several filaments from different cocoons are unwounded simultaneously to create a single continuous thread. This process is known as silk reeling. This blue-colored object called lining impeller. The silk filaments are unrolled from the impeller to wooden winding machine. Multiple filaments are combined together to form a thicker thread or yarn. Later, this yarn is removed from the wooden winding machine with the help of a worker. A cotton thread is inserted in a manner to help examine breakages and to avoid entanglements in the next stage. This is what the yarn looks like after the reeling process. The silk filaments are not in a continuous strand, they are segmented. The process of combining and winding the silk filaments onto a reel or bobbin is known as silk reeling. The silk filaments are carefully guided onto the reel or bobbin and the tension is controlled to ensure even winding. Then the reels are transported to the next stage where the silk filaments are fused together. During the process of reeling, the silk filaments from two spindles are combined into a single spindle. Once the silk filaments are reeled onto the bobbins, they are twisted together to create the silk yarn. Twisting enhances the strength and stability of the yarn while also imparting desired characteristics such as drape, sheen, and texture. Depending on the desired thickness and strength of the silk yarn, multiple strands of twisted silk yarn known as singles may be combined together through a process called plying. Plying involves twisting two or more singles together in the opposite direction of the original twist. The yarn is pulled out of the machine with the help of hands, loops it onto the legs. The silk filaments are extracted from the spindles to facilitate the dyeing process. The yarn is then carefully folded to prevent tangles. According to the length of the yarn, it gets labeled. Overall, preparing silk yarn involves separating the silk filaments, reeling them onto bobbins, twisting the filaments together to form yarn, and potentially plying multiple yarns together for desired thickness and strength. The yarn is taken to the dyeing room for the dyeing process. Before they dye the silk yarn, they first submerge in cold water to stop it from absorbing hot water. The damped yarns are suspended from the iron pipes, aiding in the even distribution and color of the yarn. Dyeing is the coloring process by dipping the yarn in the boiling color water in very high temperature. Higher the temperature, durability of color is also higher. The art of dyeing silk is the story of transforming raw silk to yarn and further enhancing the weaving process with customized designs with the wrap and breadth. The dyeing process should be cautiously undertaken as it involves boiling of the yarn in the high temperature. Repeated boiling and cooling of the yarn helps in the uniformity of the dye application. The process of manufacturing a Dharmavaram saree starts with dyeing the silk yarn. Dyeing of the yarn is done ensuring that the color is spread uniformly throughout the yarn and it does not affect the quality of the yarn. The coloring process is a very crucial step in obtaining a good saree. The colors are applied as per the significations of the designers and also sometimes as per the orders from customers who orders for a designer saree. Once the yarn has been dyed evenly, it is pulled out of boiling water and twisted with an iron rod in order to remove the hot water. Afterwards, the dyed yarn is washed twice with cold water. Subsequently, it is immersed in a diluted acid solution so that the dye sticks to the yarn. Following this, the yarn is spun in a spinner where the excess water is removed through centrifugal force. After cooling, the silk yarn is dried in a shade. Warping process. The warping process is done after dyeing the yarn. Weaver now prepares the warp to make the saree. For this process, he uses a dolu or warping machine. The thread rolls are put on the vertical frames of the warping machine. This is a movable frame. The end of the threads are taken from the rolls and are wound on the big wooden cylinders of the machine. A cotton thread is inserted in a zigzag manner to help examine breakages and to avoid entanglements. Repeated examinations are done to check for the knots and breakages. A minimum of 2 people are involved in warping process. The entire length for the wrap is stretch of 75 meters long, which can make 10 sarees at a time.
నమస్కారం అండి, మాది ధర్మవరము. మేము ఇక్కడ పట్టు చీరలు తయారు చేసేదానికి వార్పులు మేము దానికి డైయింగ్ నుంచి తెచ్చి కలర్ అద్దిచ్చి మాకు ఇచ్చిపోతారు. అప్పుడు మేము ఈ వార్పులు ఇట్లా వస్తాయి. మాకు ఇట్లా వచ్చిన దాన్ని నీట్గా చేసి దీన్నంతా దారాలు వేసి పోగులంతా ఎక్కడ కట్ అయినట్టు తీసి చూసి దాన్ని నీట్గా తయారు చేసి వాళ్ళకి ఇస్తాము. మాకు దాదాపు ఇది తయారు చేయాలంటే ఒక 4 గంటల సేపు టైం పడుతుంది. ఒక వార్పు వచ్చి 8 చీరల కాంటి 10 చీరలు 16 చీరల కాంటి 20 చీరలు 30 చీరల కాంటి కూడా మాకు ఇచ్చిపోతారు. మేము ఇదే వృత్తిలోనే చేసుకుంటా ఉంటాము. ఇద్దరు నేను నా భార్య ఇద్దరమును.
The dolu or wrap machine that rotates on its axis and a horizontal frame on which a number of threads rolled can be attached. Sizing of the wrap to ensure the quality of the threads. The ends of the threads taken from the rolls are wound on big wooden cylinders of the machine, spreading the warp eventually across the machine for rolling the warp. This process of rolling warp gives maximum uniformity and tension to the warp. The density of the thread in the warp determines the quality of the saree. While rolling the warp in an iron rod, a thick layered paper is inserted to avoid entanglements. Finally, the prepared warp is attached to the loop frame to weave the saree. The manual weaving process now commences with the weaver taking the position in a weaving pit. This shuttle holds the smaller section of silk yarn which is run horizontally while weaving. It is carefully prepared in this manner and a skilled weaver is then able to weave the saree. Dharmavaram silk sarees are traditionally woven in the interlocked weft technique. The weavers use their hands and legs to weave the saree. It requires approximately 4 to 8 days of continuous efforts of 2 people for weaving a saree. The design required on the saree is initially drawn in a computer and then it is punched on a card and then these cards are loaded in jacquard in the loom. Gum is applied for stiffness and shine of a saree and the excess gum is wiped off. The woven fabric is appears with taut sheen yielding as attractive look. Dharmavaram silk sarees are a benchmark in traditional craft industry. They are very famous for their striking color combination with contrast pallu and border woven with exquisite brocade golden patterns. It caters to the needs of the customers. The designs are designed by the designer according to the market demand. The peak season is the marriage season. More than half of the production and sales takes in this period.